Welcome back to my channel, and this time it doesn't start in the studio. My video actually starts in Safari on my MacBook Pro on the website for the Leica M10-R, and the reason is that finally Leica published, I think a day ago or so, firmware for a lot of rangefinder cameras to become compatible with the new Leica Visoflex 2. I looked into this for my Leica M10-R, and scrolling down here on the website we find still the Leica perspective control here, which is a firmware update quite a while back already. But then you see here download firmware update, and you get a link for release notes and you get a link for the firmware itself. In the section for the link for the release notes, we find what cameras will be updated to be compatible with the Visoflex 2, and it will be the M10, the M10 Monochrom, the M10-P, the M10-P Special Edition for the American Society of Cinematographers. And clearly on the firmware itself, you need to go to the specific website for the camera you own. So here this is for the Leica M10-R, because all these cameras have slightly different firmware. The playbook for this short Leica episode is very simple. First, I will download the release notes. We'll have a look what's inside, and if there are any other changes, then just an update for the Visoflex 2. Then we'll download the M10-R firmware. I have two M10-Rs in my studio, one with the former firmware, one with the new firmware. We'll see what it does in the context of the Visoflex 2. Of course, do a live demonstration like always on my channel, and then we conclude the video. Let's get started. I opened now the release notes after downloading them from the website I've just shown, and we see again it's for the M10, M10-P, M10-R, M10 Mono and the M10-P ASC 100 edition. And on the next page we see that indeed this firmware change is really only to generate compatibility with the new Leica Visoflex 2. And then we get a lot of instructions how to execute the firmware update, but it also comes with a disappointment on the next page, which is here, when it talks about the Leica Visoflex 2 compatibility. And if we look into that here, we see that on the Leica M11 we get the native resolution of the Visoflex 2 with 3.7 megapixel, but on all other Leica M10 rangefinder cameras the resolution is reduced to 2.4 megapixel. Having a quick look into the specs of the Visoflex 2, we find it's an OLED display which is incorporated in the EVF. 3.7 megapixel as they work on the Leica M11 is a good resolution, not a super rich resolution, and there are better EVFs in the market, but on a Leica rangefinder like the M11 it does a very decent job. And I actually like working with this tool on the hot shoe of the Leica M11, and I think is a valuable add-on to have in your camera bag. Now clearly the disappointment that you don't get the full resolution on Leica M10 rangefinder cameras is a rumor we had in the market for quite a while, and now it's confirmed. Nevertheless, it works, and what I'm going to do now is I will look into this, have an M10-R with the former firmware, the M10-R with the new firmware. We'll look into how the Visoflex is reacting to these two cameras and do a live demonstration. But before we do the live demonstration, here is one more hint for Leica M10D shooters. If you go here into the search dialog and you type in Leica M10D firmware, you will also get that compatibility for the Visoflex 2 for the Leica M10D. And you find here 3 entries. These are old firmwares here, but this is the new one. I can confirm that, and if you download this even with your Leica M10D, you will find compatibility with the Leica Visoflex 2. For the live demonstration I have two Leica M10-R here. Let's start with the first one. So that's the one with the chrome finish. You see here Leica M10-R. Let's go into the menu. Let's look into the firmware version very quickly. So we go here to the very last page. Then we have camera information, and on camera information we find the firmware number. Let's do the same on this one here. That's also a Leica M10-R, and this one here has been updated for the Visoflex 2. So let's go into firmware. Here we go, camera information, and if we look at that, we have here 30, 22, 11, 52, and here the firmware starts with 20, so clearly this is the old one, this is the new one. Now let's look into the old firmware here, and let's switch this off. Let's get here the protector removed from the hot shoe. Let's take the Visoflex 2, by the way, is a beautiful viewfinder, I really like it. Let's get the protection away. Let's mount this on the camera here. Okay, Now let's go on the M10R with the former firmware into the menu again. Let's go to page number 2. And on page number 2 we have EVF display control. Let's go into that. That's set to auto. And that means if the Visoflex 2 would work and we would approach the Visoflex 2 with our eye, then it should actually switch from LCD into EVF. So let's try to do this here. But nothing happens. See, if I go with my hand to the Visoflex 2, it doesn't switch off the LCD. Let's try to enforce this. So let's go here into EVF. Let's do this for all the settings here. But nothing happens. The LCD still is carrying the information. And I tried it, of course, with my eye. If I get close to the Visoflex 2, it's just a dark frame. It's not working on the former firmware, and we can switch this one off here. Now let's remove the Visoflex 2. Let's put it aside for a moment. Let's take the updated Leica M10R and let's mount the Visoflex 2 here. And now let's switch this on here and let's have a look into the same menu entry we looked into before. So we have here EVF display control and this is all set to auto. So let's try this out here. If I put this aside and approach with my hand, now the Visoflex 2, the LCD switches off and that's actually the way it should be. And if I would enforce now in the same menu entry to go to EVF only, the LCD would stay black and we would see information only in the EVF. And in order to show or give an impression about the quality of the EVF, even with the reduced resolution to 2.4 megapixel, I'm now going with my smartphone very close to the EVF and will film my actions on the Leica M10R through the Visoflex 2. So let's get this done. I hope you liked this live demonstration and also appreciated my thoughts and information about the Visoflex 2 now working on the M10 rangefinder cameras with a reduced resolution but still working like a charm. And as a hint for a follow-up video in the next weeks, here I mounted a very special lens which is a tri-LMR, and I did shoot this lens on the Leica M10R for night sky photography, and that video will go online in the next week, so stay tuned and don't miss me shooting still with the M10R despite the fact I'm a proud M11 owner. If you liked that video, don't forget to drop me a thumbs up. Stay tuned on my channel, there's always more to come. Thanks for watching, stay safe and healthy, and of course, peace out.